Many of you and many of the Raw Society members ask me often, or tell me rather, that they do or you do street photography, you go out and you do random pictures and you at some point get bored and you want to develop some kind of project, some kind of body of work that makes sense, that says something. And I want to start saying that that's normal. It's part of the journey of the photographer to start with something that's easy to access, like street photography. Street photography, it's important, but often when you want to develop your own voice as a photographer, your own style, if you like, you want to be a little bit more specific with stuff. You want to say something a little bit more personal, let's say. And I think that a project is something that always is going to give you that voice, because what you are going to document, either it's something more specific or something a little bit more open or artistic, is going to be personal to you. And often the next question would be, okay, so how do I develop a project? Well, there are many ways of how you can develop a project, but usually what you need is 3 or 4 kinds of pictures, and that's going to work for any kind of project. As we said in this channel other times, the kind of pictures that you need are going to be, as you know, some kind of establishing shot that says where you are, where is happening, the thing that you are documenting, what's going on, what's happening, some kind of action. Usually the kind of pictures that we like to do, the fancy stuff, the kind of photographs where we can show off a little bit, to do layers, these kind of things. But also we need to say who's the people that it's involved in our project, in our story. And there are many ways of doing that, but I think that one of the best ways of showing who is involved in our story is through portraits. In this video, I don't want to talk to you about how to do a portrait. I think that there are many ways of doing portraits. I have my own way. Maybe you will have another way of doing it, and there is no right or wrong. I want to talk about the act of having and doing portraits and the importance of portraits in a project. And I say this because it's important that you develop your own way of doing portraits and relate with people in your own manner that is going to be maybe similar to my own way, and maybe it's going to be very different. So there is nothing wrong with that. I think that it's important to avoid formulas. Someone said that these formulas are like thunder. They impress a lot, but they don't give much light. And I tend to agree. There are some guidelines for projects, for portraits. You can be more orthodox, more proper, like the ones that I just show you. Our portraits are very straightforward. You can be a little bit more experimental, maybe, showing people in a different way that it's more personal to you, maybe a little bit more artistic, or with a different kind of light, with artificial light. I don't know, whatever thing, but the important part here is to understand, I think, that doing portraits is a beautiful thing, and people usually, it's great, and they are going to share with you things that you wouldn't imagine without asking. Portraits humanizes a story, puts a face directly in contact with your viewers. It's interesting, obviously, because you are putting names and surnames to a story. Stops being something that happens somewhere and starts being something very personal, because there is someone directly looking at you through the lens or the frame. Another benefit of doing portraits in a project is a little bit more technical, but it's also important, I think, is that it gives the sequence. It doesn't matter if it's going to be in a book or in an exhibition or something like that. It gives loads of dynamics. We know, we have been talking about that also, the importance of the distances, right? You need some kind of starting shot, you're going to be far, is that kind of picture where you are going to show a cityscape, a landscape, and the next picture maybe you are going to be closer because there is going to be something happening that you're going to be about 3 or 4 meters from the action. With a portrait you are even closer. So as you see, you start to have these different distances, and you're going to cover the story from afar, from the middle distance, and from a very close distance. So visually, through the sequence, you are going to have these ups and downs that are so important to maintain the interest of your audience or your viewer. Because remember, we are asking for undivided attention, so we need to maintain interest, like the same happens in a movie, for example, or in a book, in a story. And one of the most important parts of this is that I will say that portraits are easy to do. Seems counterintuitive because it's kind of weird to say how it's going to be easy to take portraits of a stranger in the street or some country that you are traveling. You have to ask, and that's it. So you only need to ask. Some people is going to say yes, some people maybe they are going to say no, but in general, in my experience, almost everyone says yes. Obviously, you have to approach with a body language and an honesty that doesn't seem weird, that doesn't feel to the other person suspicious. It's something that many people tell me, that when I ask people, they look at me weird and they don't want to. Well, it's a process. At the beginning, it's definitely strange, but you gain confidence when you start to do it over and over. And as I said, you only have to ask. And when they say yes, and this is important, I would say that think about for a moment what's happening. Is that someone is giving you access and time, their own time, for you to use. So remember not to take just one frame and leave. Try to figure out where is the best background. Try to talk a little bit. Try to show what you are doing to the person. They are giving you something, you have to give something back. And also, a part that it's a little bit strange when you are doing portraits is that it's a little bit of a battle, let's say. It's not a battle because at the end you're doing a collaboration, a true collaboration. But the thing is that maybe because of your story or your style, you want to show an aspect of that person that you are interested because it's going to fit the narrative. But that person maybe wants to look in a certain way in the picture. It happens to all of us. And it's important to have this conversation with the person if you can, if it's with another language, trying to show things and to work the portrait, to do more than one picture, and to try a little bit longer, a little bit shorter focal length, a little bit closer, a little bit farther, and definitely just do some. There is going to be probably some pictures that the person is going to prefer and they're going to like more, and other pictures that you are going to like more, but somewhere in between is where everything is going to work. And maybe you will use a picture later for the project that it makes more sense than the one that that person chose, but that's not important. The important thing is that you should use the time, the collaboration that that person agrees with you for making the best portrait or set of portraits that you can. Another great benefit of portraits is that because you have to talk and you have to explain yourself a little bit, you start this relationship, this conversation with someone, you are going to gain access to certain things that maybe without talking with that person you wouldn't. And that's fantastic, because if we talk about projects, to have access with someone or a group of people is going to be fantastic, because you can go deeper with your story with that person, or maybe that person knows someone else that it's interesting for you for some reason. But the thing is that it's a perfect moment, a perfect situation to talk and to explain yourself and to show what you want to do. And definitely it's a great moment to listen. People often think that people in the street don't want to waste time, they are in a rush, and it happens. It's like that loads of the time. But also people want to explain themselves, especially if you approach them in an honest way. They want to tell you their story, and you are there for that. You are there to record that story and to show to your audience in a way that it's beautiful and it's powerful, their story and your story all together. To finish, I would like to give you a little exercise that I have done with workshops on location, and it's always interesting to do. And especially if you are shy asking for portraits, or you are not sure of what's going to happen. And this exercise will be: go out to the streets, wherever you are, and try to get 10 people saying no to a portrait. You're going to see that it's harder than you think. Usually people say yes to these portraits. I've been doing this kind of photography for over 14 years, and it's very rare to have someone telling me, no, I don't want anything to do with you. So usually, if you explain yourself in a nice way, you have an honest and open body language, people is going to agree, and they're going to say, okay, do whatever you need to do. And that's great, because you develop interesting relationships and you make friends, and as I said, you discover things that you wouldn't. I wanted to quickly mention as well that all of these topics, all of these how to do a project are complex. Just with these short videos in YouTube, it's complicated. That's why we have the Raw Society mentorship and the membership as well. So if you're interested in knowing more and to develop something in a more private and personal way with us, with me and our ambassadors, go to the website and see what's going on there. I think it's interesting, especially if you want to step up your photography and you want to develop something that is more personal to you and more interesting.